to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing Greta, the movie that warns you against befriending lonely old people. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me first up tonight from Hotlanta, Georgia, she is a southern witch, you might say. Please welcome Cece to the show.
Hello.
It's like Designing Women meets Little Witches. That's not a movie.
Yeah.
Little Witches is a
Okay.
movie.
What was the second thing?
No,
Little
never
Witches.
mind.
Nope, don't
How
go
about
there.
how about the Witches of Eastwick?
Sure.
What's her
Her real name's CC Sugarbaker.
See,
I mean, my name is pretty southern when you say my entire name,
Yeah.
so I don't think I have to make one up.
Cece, could your new catchphrase be "I do declare"?
I just say Lord and Jesus on the in response to things quite often.
Very, very nice. Listen. That's why we like you here. You're bringing a new flavor to the show. It's great. Next up in the show, bringing that Midwestern flavor. That means your primetime shows come on an hour earlier. He likes to vape. Please welcome Casey to the show.
Hello, and I'm on the same time zone as you, so Joe's the one that gets the hour earlier.
Ah, isn't Indianapolis the weird thing where like everybody around the city is a different time, or Indianapolis is central and the rest of the state's eastern, or something weird?
No, we got two corners of the state that are on Joe's time zone. One at the southern end and one at the northern end.
He claims the whole time zone now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time
Nice.
zones, how do they work? That's for a future episode of Bloody Good Horror. But first, let's talk to this next guy joining us tonight. He is fancy. He's so fancy. He lives in New York City, Manhattan, to be exact, in case you were wondering as to his status in life. He's
That's the definition of fanciness,
He's the
actually.
business manager at bloodygoodhorror.com. Please welcome Mr. John Schnars.
Hello, Eric.
I'm glad you finally accepted that, John.
Yeah,
I mean, you
it's
have
good.
you have a literal doorman. I know it's
You-
been a while since
Oh,
we
yeah,
talked
yeah.
about this, but I've met him. He's a
Yeah,
very
Edwin. He's a chill dude. There's like 8 dudes who work as our doorman now, because they're on like shifts and stuff.
Are there any ones that you don't like?
No, they're all super nice. Well, so what's funny is like
Oh,
the
I'm
staff of
ex-
the building
I'm
is
so
like pretty.
excited about this
Well,
conversation.
no, the staff of the building is pretty big, and there's dudes who have worked as the doorman, and for whatever reason, whether they ask to not be doormen anymore, or like I don't know, they're demoted, they get like removed from being doormen, and they have to go to basically being like handymen, and like I have no idea if it's like they wanted to change jobs or what, but like it's very strange because like my favorite doorman was the night doorman, and he's now like not the night doorman anymore.
It's
And,
called career pathing, John.
So,
yeah.
how does it work? Serious question. How does it work when you like order food out? Do you have to go down, or do they like?
No, they come up.
No,
Who
you
comes
wait.
up?
The delivery people come
The
up.
delivery people come up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Their
thought maybe.
doorman doesn't bring it
Doorman,
to you.
no.
I thought maybe you were getting some like doorman room service here. Was my question. Cece knows. What I'm
Well,
talking
there's like a mail room, and like they do have to go through the mail room. They're not allowed. Delivery people can't go in through the main entrance. That's
about. That's so on
that
brand.
is
The
off
servant's
limits.
entrance is what you're
Yeah.
referring
Yes,
to, right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So what you're saying is me and Eric and Joe were lucky we got to go through the main entrance.
You know, I had to tip them extra, but yeah, it worked. out.
I'll tell
So,
you what, John. 12 years, and I'm still endlessly fascinated by your life.
I mean, you know, it's pretty standard actually for New York life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
it's like
yeah?
we're definitely like upper middle class.
Yeah.
New
Does
Yorkers, so-
everybody have a doorman and a rooftop pool in New York?
in our neighborhood? It is not that crazy, no.
Oh,
So.
well, you live in Manhattan.
I was a little disappointed that there wasn't somebody to work the elevator buttons for me.
I have been in buildings with elevator attendants. That is like a whole different. That's like the next level.
I'm not.
That's the next level of bougie.
I'm not a fan of that. It's just another person to stand silent in awkwardness with in the. You
No,
know.
but you talk to them like you talk to my doorman. You know. like,
Well, he's so nice you can't not talk to him. You know, it's
Well,
like
yeah, that's the deal.
doesn't mean I want to.
Yeah, well, that's fair. No, it's like I think doorman's like a pretty sweet job. Like I have no idea, but like it's a union thing. Like people want to have that job and like can't get it. I know that. So
There you
yeah.
go.
Well, you think on the stress levels, it's got to be pretty minimal. It's got to be a pretty good way to fly.
Well, it's one of
And what-
my favorite 30 Rock gags that's like pretty New York specific, but when she gets like I guess she's like suspended from work and she spends the days like going down to talk to her doorman. It's the best. And I think he's Polish and I don't know. It's good times. So
Now you're
there's
sl-
definitely that. That's the stress is you have to put up with real annoying tenants at times.
now you're slandering the polls. Got it. So anyway, we are here
Yeah.
tonight. Speaking of New York City, John, actually, that was a totally unintentional segue. I had nothing
I
to do
thought
with
it was
this movie.
totally intentional.
No,
I was
I'm
going
not
to give you
that good.
full credit there.
We are here tonight to talk about Greta. This is a movie starring the lovely, in my opinion, Chloe Grace Moretz, and this other lady who's not the lady from The Shape of Water. John, I don't know who this lady is, but
Yeah. Her name is Isabel Huppert. Huppert.
similarly short and mousy. And
Well, you know, it's funny. She, I believe, was also nominated for the Oscar in 2007 for Best Actress, or 2017, which was The Shape of Water year, unless I'm
that could
losing
be.
my mind.
That sounds right. Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, this came out in theaters back in the winter, I think, or maybe it was early spring or something like that.
March.
Yeah,
March.
so early spring, and we did kind of the new thing we're doing here, which is like we can't make it out to everything, but we have a list, John, so to speak, of hey, we missed this, but we're gonna catch it on a video, so that's what we're doing tonight. So you can look forward to that discussion here in a little bit. We wanted to talk a little bit off the top, John, about next week because of the impending drop of the Child's Play remake, the latest high-profile horror remake, John.
Yeah, it's unclear. I mean, I'm curious how hype you all are for this because like I feel like there's not
If hype means
sort of like
excitement, I'm like a 2.
Yeah.
Like my curiosity is like a 5 because I'm just curious. You know what I mean?
That's
But,
a
like,
good way to put it. And part of my
5 out of
curiosity,
10? Like that's pretty low.
part of my curiosity is to see Aubrey Plaza play a mom and not a weirdo.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know how old the kid's supposed to be, but she's got to be 30-ish, right? She's probably
Yeah, close to it at least.
I don't know. Cece,
Wait,
what-
how old is Aubrey Plaza?
Yeah.
I mean, I think she's
I don't
Hold
guess
on.
women's ages. Just
she's
I put out-
34.
Oh,
Oh, there you go.
she could be a mom. She could have a 10-year-old. Or whatever.
Totally mom age.
Yeah.
Cece, how do you feel about the original Child's Play? How do you feel about the remake?
I remember seeing the original Child's Play super young and liking it, but obviously being pretty scared shitless. So I was not initially. I've liked all of the other Child's Play, well, the majority of all the other Child's Plays, and I was kind of looking forward to this, and then I kind of got weirded out there for a second when, you first got a glimpse of it, like the redone face. But I like the aspect that it's all like AI, so I'm excited for it.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. Like I feel this weird moment, like not exactly the same, but like pre Ghostbusters remake, when suddenly it was like I had no idea so many people have like such strong thoughts about the original movie. Like I'm seeing some really interesting, like a really interesting surge of people like loving the original Child's Play. And like here's the thing to remember, John, like Chucky was always like generously like 4th tier horror icon in the 80s. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
listen, it's like if you're talking at just the 80s, right? It's like Jason,
Well, was it
Freddy.
80s or was it 90s?
Yeah, it came out in '86, didn't it?
Yeah,
The original
it
was
started
late.
in
The
80s.
original was late. He was kind of late to the parade. But
Yeah.
again, like late to the parade, where it was already turning kind of jokey and self-effacing,
Yeah.
and you can see that in the first movie. The first movie is fine. It features one of my least favorite horror tropes, which is where there's a young kid who knows everything going on, and for 45 minutes of the movie, nobody will listen to him
No one
because
listens.
Yeah.
because you're basically just burning time until the fun stuff happens. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I find that really obnoxious. It's got its moments. Like, look, the scene where there's no batteries in the doll and it talks. That's like brilliant. Where he
Yeah.
reveals himself to the mom. Just like really great suspense. And but I feel like Bride of Chucky is like the pinnacle of Chucky movies that will never be. You know, I think these direct-to-video things they've been releasing have kind of proved to me that, like, I don't know, John, maybe we've gone to that well one too many times.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of what was it, the Curse of Chucky. I mean, it was
The
fine.
last one, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, I was super into. So,
I'm curious
Yeah.
to see.
They're
I guess
so wacky.
my-
I mean,
but I love
actually,
them.
yeah,
Like
no,
it's
I-
just that, like they just lean into it.
oh,
And
dude,
they, they start leaning into that like that meta, like that meta genre that like Scream does. So I just
I mean, and
appreciate that.
Yeah,
thing,
that's the way
thing
it's
about,
always been for me. It wasn't about Chucky and his iconness. It
Yeah.
was about what goofy shit are they going to do this time around. I can't wait.
The thing about Bride of Chucky is like it was perfectly timed. I think it was pre-Scream actually, but it's like very meta.
Oh,
very,
yeah, it is.
very of that time, and it was directed by Ronnie Yu, John, who did
Mm.
Freddy vs. Jason. So it's got that like colorful, kinetic kind of like energy to it.
Well, and it
um,
has Jennifer Tilly.
Jennifer
So
Jennifer Tilly is brilliant in that movie. It's just a lot of it's a lot of fun. I've seen parts of Seed and it looks a little bewildering to me, but I know some people are like pretty into it.
I mean, I appreciate where it went. Like, I definitely wouldn't say that it's on the same level as Bride of Chucky, but I appreciated that they like, I don't know, they tackle a lot of things you wouldn't expect, especially not even just a movie at that time, but like a horror movie to kind of
Yeah.
be the first to introduce.
I mean, my biggest question is, does it take the opportunity by having a doll that's like smart connected to like have some fun, smart commentary about the creepiness of like these connected things living in our spaces and talking to us, right? Like there's a
Yeah,
lot
or
there's
like Alexa listening to you
Yeah.
all the
exactly.
time.
Like there's a
Mhm.
lot of material there.
Mhm.
The question is that what they're doing here, or is it just kind of window dressing as a way to modernize it? It's yet. I mean, we have to see it. That's
Oh,
but
for
that's
sure.
my biggest curiosity.
Although I do
going
think that there's a mention that like the car is also done by the same company.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that like
It
there'll
looks
at least be a fine line.
It looks like, I mean, based on the trailer, it looks like Chucky is able to then eventually control like all kinds of machinery.
Ah, okay, I haven't seen
Which-
that, but that makes sense.
Yeah. The last movie was Cult of Chucky. I don't know that I ever
Yes.
saw Curse. That might be the one I've never.
Curse?
Oh,
Curse-
I
Cur-
don't think I liked
Yeah.
either one of them.
We reviewed Curse, John.
Yeah.
It's got
We
Fiona.
did Cult too. It had Brad
Yeah.
Dourif's daughter.
Yeah, no,
she-
I saw Cult. I definitely saw Cult.
She was
I
in
don't-
both. She was in both of them. If you saw
Yeah.
Cult,
Yeah.
if you saw,
Oh, I did see
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Curse.
I was-
That's the one that takes place in the house,
Yes.
and then
Yep.
yes,
Yeah.
and then Cult is like kind of a sequel.
I was gonna say if you
Ay,
didn't,
ay, ay.
if you didn't see Cult, Curse, then Cult would have made even less sense than it already
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete nonsense. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, who the hell knows? I think the big hurdle that everyone is gonna need to get over is that Chucky now looks like Alita Battle Angel, and that's
Well, actually, that's
that could be
fine.
problematic.
That's
And
fine.
sounds like the Joker.
That's
Yeah.
fine because Alita is like her eyes are terrifying.
yeah, no, totally. I mean, there's it could work in either direction.
I just think it's a weird like in between. I feel like either hew really close to the original design or do your own thing. I think what's weird to me is the in between of it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm excited to see too, like Eric was talking about, if they're gonna play on some smart commentary with today's everything, Internet of Things and all that good stuff. I'm curious to see if Mark Hamill is gonna do something unique for Chucky, or if he's just gonna do the Joker in a Chucky costume.
Hmm.
Because the dude's a great voice actor and the Joker's a great character, but I'd like to see him not reuse it.
Yeah, we'll see. Mark Hamill is an interesting, actor. We'll have to dig in next week, I guess.
I really love Twitter Mark Hamill because he just does not give a f and will say whatever happens. Like
Oh yeah,
that dude went
It's
that dude
actually-
went a long time without really getting a ton of work. Like he's done voice stuff and stuff, but like now he's got that Star Wars money again, and his character's basically whatever. He's just like, see ya.
Got that Star Wars money.
Time to listen to my.
he's always had some of it. But yeah,
Time to
he's
listen to
definitely
my
catching some new jokes.
listen to my political rant on Twitter. It's good stuff. All right, guys. So yeah,
You get it.
next week, Bride of Chucky, and
What child's
okay.
play? What are you talking?
whatever.
Losing your goddamn mind over there.
Seed of Chucky, Bride, Yeah. I think it's time to talk about Greta. You guys ready?
Greta.
Ready?
I had a chihuahua named Greta.
That's great. This lady is not un-chihuahua-like. All right, guys.
That's rough, dude.
Quick break so we can discuss Greta.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. Greta, John.
Mm-hmm.
John, why don't you share a little insight into your word of the day process here? How'd you find your word of the day today?
I love how proud you are when you come up with one word of the day suggestion in 500 episodes. It's amazing.
I'm sure there's been more,
Yeah.
and I've done it myself a couple times. And
Listen,
killed-
I
and
had a
killed it.
rough evening prep. I did not have time to prep for the show as much as I would like. Word tends to be the last thing that I do, and I was coming in pretty late.
So what happened?
But I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I threw it out to you and Casey, and you suggested something, and we're like, maybe there's a synonym for that, and then you came up with another.
I wasn't invited to this party.
Well, you,
Well, Cece,
you
we
weren't
were on
there
the
yet.
You showed up
Oh,
for
so-
pre-show, Cece.
Listen.
If you showed up for the pre-show, aka Eric and Casey, or Casey sits there by himself while Eric takes a potty break, then you would've
Right?
been there.
Sometimes I play the ukulele.
I would love to know. I never really listened to those segments. I would love to know that Casey's having this like own secret conversation with the listenership that I never hear because I'm gone.
Expounding.
And he's like, if you
Yeah.
tell anyone this, I will kill you.
I've got a whole like secret campaign going on Twitter. Emotional status, Eric.
It's not that hard, so.
All right, John, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word, with all due credit to yours truly, or yourself, skulk.
Beautiful
S-K-U-L-K.
word.
Skulk. The verb, meaning keep out of sight, typically with a sinister or cowardly motive.
Wow.
It can also,
I nailed that.
yeah, no, very good, very good. It can also be used to mean move stealthily or furtively, or shirk one's duties or responsibilities. And here-
Stealthily, like say somehow sneaking onto a bus without some person seeing you.
Listen, we're going to talk about New York City buses because
I don't
You had,
care.
like-
that doesn't explain what happened in that scene. I'm sorry.
you had a moment and you were
She was
you were
like-
very confused.
She was like 50 yards behind her, and then suddenly she's on the bus, and they're like,
New-
"What?
New Yorkers didn't even bat an eye at that. Is all I'm saying.
Bullshit."
We were
It's bullshit.
we were not nonplussed. So this is the part I thought you would love the most. Origin of skulk, Scandinavian.
Oh yes.
Yes, coming to
Ooh.
us from they say compare with Norwegian skulka, meaning
Mm,
to lurk, or the Danish skulky,
it's
or
great.
just skulk, I don't know, or Swedish skulka, meaning shirk.
Hmm.
So there you go.
I did a better job than even I realized. That's amazing, John. Thank you.
You sure did.
Thank you for having the good sense to take my suggestion.
It's the judgment. It's my judgment about words that got us over the hump here.
Okay, you've taught me well, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
All right, John. John, tell me about Greta. Who I didn't look at, and I don't know if you did. Like, who made this thing?
Yeah. So I'm actually glad because this is one of the most interesting parts about this movie in a lot of ways. Really interesting writer-director here, writer-producer-director Neil Jordan. Many of his films will be known to you and to listeners. Probably, if I had to pick one most famous, The Crying Game. He also directed and wrote Interview with a Vampire. Michael Collins, he had like a real nice run there in the 90s. He did The End of the Affair.
Dude, I love Interview with the Vampire.
Well, so most recently, the most recent film. So he's done one movie. His most recent movie prior to this was actually Byzantium, which we
Huh.
did on the show.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Mhm.
Another.
That was the one with
little-
that was the vampire thing with Gemma Arterton.
Exactly.
Yes.
That was
Yeah,
the
and,
episode where I learned that name is pronounced Gemma.
What about what's her name? Cyrus?
Sure.
Sorsha.
Shorsha. Ay, ay, She's really blown up since that movie. That was 2012. So he hasn't done anything in a little while. He was doing the Borgias. He was writing and directing the Borgias on it's on TV. I forget. One of those networks. In any event, so pretty serious guy. He has an Oscar win, I believe, as writer of The Crying Game. Yeah, so he was nominated as Best Director and Best Writer for Crying Game. Yeah, so pretty legit dude. Working here, as you mentioned, with Chloe Grace Moretz and Isabelle Huppert, who was nominated, as I mentioned, in 2017 for Best Actress for a movie called Elle, which actually has a lot of similarities or similar sort of, it covers some similar ground, I would say. The only other real character of note is Micah Monroe. She plays Erica, who's sort of Chloe Grace Moretz's best friend. Pretty simple setup here.
She was from, we should say, she was in It Follows.
Yeah, Micah Monroe. She's been in a bunch of stuff now that we've seen. She's kind of like a horror person now. Independence Day, Resurrection. She was in The Guest.
She was in that movie?
Yeah, or Resurgence, not Resurrection.
That movie was
Jesus
wacky.
Christ. Yeah, it was real not
Remember
good. She was also the main girl in The Guest.
Remember the giant alien at the end?
Yeah, of Independence Day. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of giant aliens. I feel
No,
like.
no,
I
but
don't
like,
remember that one.
no, the end of that movie, they fought like a 10-story tall one.
I honest to God blacked it out because I think I went on a real rant during that episode, if I remember. That was one of my last ranty episodes.
There's like a few very specific things I remember about that movie, but anyway, go on.
It's real dumb. So yeah, that's really all the characters you need to know. So Chloe Grace Moretz plays Frances. She is a Bostonian transplant. I think they say that they went to Smith College together. I think that's the name drop you get. But she lives with Micah Monroe. They're living in a very nice apartment in Tribeca, which is sort of like downtown for the non-New York, initiated.
Thank you.
But they're living in, no, I mean, it's like a thing because they're living in this like really gorgeous and large apartment that Micah Monroe's dad has purchased for her. So it's funny because she's playing, Micah Monroe's like the spoiled sort of like rich girl, but she's also in some ways like the most likable character in the film. I
Yeah.
mean, we can get into it. But so you have Frances living with her. She is basically working as a waitress. They're fresh out of college. Her roommate isn't working at all. And in the very beginning of the film, Frances finds a handbag on the subway. It has an ID card in it for this woman, Greta. And Frances returns the bag to Greta, and they strike up this friendship. And we learn that Frances lost her mom. Greta's kind of stepping in as a mother figure to her. They're doing things like cooking together and just starting to spend a lot of time. The Micah Monroe character is very sort of put off by the whole thing, and it's a little nasty, like warning Frances maybe not to get so close with her. But we find out pretty quickly it's really right before the first act turn that Greta, so basically they're having dinner and Frances finds a closet full of the exact same handbag that she found on the train. And so at that point, their relationship, she doesn't reveal this to Greta right away, but she really tries to sort of ghost Greta. And Greta isn't really taking the hint. And at that point, it really does become sort of a stalker and do we call them stalkies? Stalky relationship.
Victim.
A stalked, yes, victim, obviously. And that kind of kicks off, what is in some ways a slow burn. I think we'll have differing opinions on the amount of action, but Greta becomes increasingly sort of forthright in her insistence upon seeing Frances. It goes some wacky places.
All right. Very nice. John, I forgot your music.
Well,
That's
I had to carry it.
Well, let's play it right now. Hey,
What
Cece.
is happening?
Hey, Cece,
Yeah.
what'd you think of Greta?
I did not know anything about this movie going in, and having seen y'all's tweets before, or not tweets, but text thread before I started watching it, I was not really looking forward to it. But overall, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I know we will probably get into it a little more, but it is a little slow, and not that that's like I normally don't really mind that, but it seems like it's slow and kind of the tension isn't building as intensely as maybe it should, like it does in the third act. And you know, there's still the stuff that's going on that you're expecting to kind of like start building, and it just kind of takes a while to get there. But overall, I thought that the actress that played Greta, I know we just said her name, I'm sorry, but
Isabel.
yes, she was really good. I thought that she played the, you know, the weird, inviting older lady. You know, it was very much like a Baba Yaga type character where you want to think that she's very benign, but she's also like there's something weird about her that you are like actively telling yourself to ignore. Yeah, and normally I don't, you know, I mean, I'm all about Chloe Moretz or Chloe Grace Moretz, but I don't know, like they're just she kind of missed the mark a little bit in this for me, and I was much more interested in her roommate as a character, especially when normally it's the roommate character that you're supposed to be annoyed with, like the main character is, and how their relationship ends or where their relationship is at the end of the movie. I appreciated.
Casey.
I also did. Well, remember seeing the trailers when it first came out. I was kind of hoping we'd cover it then. Getting into this movie, though, once I finally sat down and watched it, now I really got sucked into it and really bought into it. I thought this was pretty great from beginning to end. Yes, it is a slow start and it takes a while to get there, but I think I was in the right headspace for it, for that kind of slow burn. And I really got into Isabel Hupperd's character and the way she evolved and everything. I thought most of the acting was pretty good. I'm normally not a huge Chloe Grace Moretz fan. Not that I think she's bad or anything. It's just usually don't get too excited about her being in a flick. And I thought she was really solid in this too. I think everybody was pretty good. So, but Isabel Huppert really grabbed me throughout this movie because once she started to turn, I thought she was absolutely terrifying.
John.
Yeah, I would say I came into this with pretty, I wouldn't say like super high expectations, but I was definitely interested to see it. I think a couple of months back we joked because this trailer, The Intruder, and sort of like one other, there was like a grouping of threatening stalkery type movies that were all coming out right around the same time, and we were getting those trailers. I feel like at a couple different screenings. So this of that group though, this was the one I was probably most excited about. I mean, we joke about it, but I like a New York horror movie. You don't get that often, and this one does it. I mean, it's not. We can talk about how much of a horror it is versus more like a thriller, but it does a good job. I mean, it sort of feels suitably New York, but it also you know it doesn't like make any of the obvious mistakes, I guess. But yeah, like Casey and Cece both mentioned, I thought the movie was super professionally done to the point where maybe like halfway through, I actually went to look up the director because I was like, who the hell did this? Like, we must, you know, I was like, I wonder who this is. And then to look and see the other stuff that he had done, it kind of, I don't know, it made sense, right? Because it feels like a confidently directed film in a lot of ways. It also does feel like a movie where he let the actors act. And so I agree that Chloe Grace Moretz was probably a little more uneven. You know, I mean, she's younger, you know, she just like doesn't have as many reps. I thought Michael Monroe was really good. The character, it's a way easier role, you know, to play.
There's not a ton going on with the character. Her character description is like, is rich, does yoga, is concerned about her friend.
Yeah. No, right. Well, and I mean, we've talked about it on past shows. Michael Monroe was like famously, I think, discovered because she was a surfer. So like she can kind of like pull that off, right? You know, like so yeah, I really like the two of them. And Isabel Huppert, so I had seen this movie Elle, we covered it on Sophistical Cinema, and I went into that movie not knowing anything about her really. She's done a bunch of other stuff, but she's been in a bunch of foreign films. She I believe is French by origin. I should have looked that up, but
that's what she says anyway.
Well, no, she is. She was born in Paris, so
it's a joke. It's a joke about the movie, John. It's relevant.
Yeah, no, it is. But she, I mean, she is like to me. This movie either like lives or dies with how you feel about her performance because she is chewing scenery in a lot of scenes. There's a
Yeah.
lot of the just letting her kind of run wild, and I really enjoyed it. Like how scary it was, or how intimidating I found her is like sort of, I don't know. I still something I haven't decided, but I just really liked it. I mean, I found it very entertaining. It goes it does take a little while to get to sort of more of the action, but I think if you're with the characters in that early part, it'll get you through, and then the action once it happens starts to get a little crazy. I think the big question I'm curious for everybody's kind of like read on is how straight up you're supposed to read this movie versus how much of it is meant to be tongue in cheek, because there's a lot of stuff that's like it's like just on the line of goofy, where you're kind of like they must know that this is goofy. Like this guy again, he's not clueless. Like he's done a lot of movies. So yeah, I don't know. That to me, there's a couple moments that are almost like funny for how they're handled. And I don't know how like much this is almost supposed to be not a black comedy, but like getting closer to that than other movies might.
This is an interesting one for me. Like, this is to me like unlike last week or 2 weeks, whatever. Whenever we did The Perfection, John, where
Mhm.
like
That was last week.
The Perfection almost becomes fascinating at some point because of how bad it's done, and I'm sitting here like just deconstructing in my head, like why is this so offensive to me? And so that becomes like the I don't know, the fun I get out of watching that movie. This movie is different, and like this to me is a perfectly cromulent movie. It is it is fine. It is very competent. It has some pretty decent actors. It does absolutely nothing for me. Like you can call it a slow burn, and I think that's definitely fair to say. And I do think there's something.
It's not a like a roller coaster ride.
There's
Sure.
something
Yeah.
to what there's something to what Casey is saying though about like I think people know you got to be in the right mood for a slow burn for sure, in order to
totally.
stick around for the payoff. But like, I still think that there are movies that are so good that doesn't matter my mood, it's gonna suck me in. Like a really great example of that is, I mean, it's a totally different movie, but like we did Climax and I felt awful that day, and like I zoned into that movie immediately because I could immediately tell like this filmmaker is working on another level, and I'm like into this. I want to see where it's going. This to me is like, this reminds me a lot of the like very middle of the road thrillery things we did in the first 4 or 5 years of this show. It almost kind of blows me away that this gets made and put in a theater in the Blumhouse era, because what Blumhouse has done really brilliantly and why they make so much money with these thrillers of this size budget is that they go for wacky scripts. They go for stuff like Ma. And like I haven't seen Ma, and I've heard pretty mixed things. I know Casey was saying it's kind of a mess, but I would rather watch Ma than this, because you watch that trailer and you're like, what is this? Like, this is insane. That's like what Blumhouse excels at, and why I watch something like this and I'm like, what is even the point of this movie? Like, you know what I mean? To me, like the wheels of motion, the pure like force of will and inertia it takes to make a movie, and like you have to be really passionate about it, and I cannot imagine pouring that much energy into this script. Like, no bullshit, nothing happens for 50 minutes of this movie.
Well, but Eric,
And,
that's
like-
where I don't think it's about the script. Like I do think it's about getting like this is the thing about this movie. It's a very small film. Like we talked about, there's only 3 characters.
I don't
you know?
think. I guess my point is like I think the directing is fine, but not good enough, in my opinion, to like make you feel that tension ratcheting up. Like it's very bland. Like for 45, 50 minutes, it's just her skulking, John, like in the background and kind of like stalking her, and then like
Well, that's
nobody's threatened really. Nobody gets. I mean, like a little bit. Like nobody gets hurt. There's no like really crazy shit happening. It's just like her standing outside of windows, and at some point I'm like, guys, let's like
But
pick it
she's
up a
standing
little.
outside a window for like 5 hours.
It's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine
Yeah.
once or
Still.
it's fine once or twice, but it's like an entire act of just that. And then finally, there's this moment. Like finally, it turns in the beginning of the third act where like suddenly the main character is like super in danger. But even that, then it's like just repetitive scenes over and over. There's one moment in this thing that I won't spoil at the moment, but I'll refer to as the cookie cutter scene. It was the one moment where this movie to me like shows life. Like it shows like, okay, somebody writing this had a pretty inspired idea and like a fun shocking moment in this movie, and it's the only time that happens. Like literally, now that I'm talking about it, I'm actually turning on it more. but I think it is a perfectly, again, like competent movie that I just cannot understand why it was made, because it's like it has nothing to add. You know what I mean? It's not
all right.
excelling at anything. It's
Who-
not bringing anything new to the
Who
table.
wants to get in here? Because like I'm chomping, but you guys both seemed like you wanted to say something.
I mean, it's fine. You can go ahead.
So the thing that I think you might have just had like the wrong frame, or you might still have the wrong frame. Like this is a character-driven film, right? And so like to say that like nothing happens, or they like, I actually was surprised how quickly this turned into a straight stalker movie, right? Like, and maybe you didn't.
The bag scene from the trailer happens like 20 minutes in.
Yeah, it's pretty early on. So, and I guess my point is like, you may not have felt threatened by Greta, but like the point is that Chloe Grace Francis feels threatened, right? And the thing that I think this movie does a good job doing, and again, whether you like think it moves quickly enough or like this, like I think the script and the acting and the way that it's all packaged, it pulls off this feeling of being new in New York City, having no money, and like basically trying to build connections in a city. And this is where like I the things I liked about this movie is that it portrays city life pretty accurately.
Oh, now we're getting down to it.
Huh?
Now we're getting down
Oh,
to it.
well,
This is
I mean,
this is
like,
an
in that it's,
NYC
like-
file thing.
Well, no, but I mean in that like it can be alienating, and it can be like a lonely existence. And like she has this best friend that she lives with, but the best friend and her, while they're like very close and like share like personal affection, like the best friend, like at least from what I understand, didn't have a job because she didn't need one.
Mhm.
Whereas like Chloe Grace Moretz is like busting her ass and taking extra shifts and like living this like pretty not glamorous life, other than this fact that she has this really sweet apartment set up. And so when she like makes this connection with Greta, you're like, oh wow, like oh, this is like a nice, like she's made a personal connection, and then it turns threatening on her so quickly, and she has this like sweetness to her that
Yeah.
again, like a lot of it just hinges on you believing that character and believing that she wants to be nice, and like she doesn't want to escalate this stalker situation, and eventually she does feel threatened, even if like you didn't think it was that threatening.
I
guess, is
just
what I'm-
Yeah,
I
and
just
I
didn't
thought they-
find that stuff very compelling. It's like so like the way you say that makes it sound really deep, but like I feel like you are like interpolating based off of some pretty like surface stuff the movie is giving you.
No,
like
I
the
got
offhanded
same thing out
comment
of it as
about like
Stars did.
like the offhanded comment of like, oh, you're from Boston where they are nice to people, and it's like, bro, have you, like Cece said, have you ever been here?
Right. I mean,
But
Boston
that's-
is great, but like,
But
there-
that's
I
also
mean,
just
Like
make
make her from
conversation between
Yeah.
strangers.
no,
Well,
but
and-
that's
yeah.
important.
And they play, and with what the stuff what John was talking about when they first start setting up this relationship and stuff, I felt that they did a good job about setting up that there's some kind of strained relationship between Chloe and her dad, and she'd lost her mom, and so it seemed pretty natural that this was kind of a mother figure that she connected to, and they're kind of playing on that kind of emotional string as well to pull it in. For me, it worked. It just kind of sucked it in, and I thought that the start of their relationship was pretty natural, and it felt fairly natural. I will say though that they did go wrong with this movie with the trailers, because they gave us that bag scene in the trailers, and without that, I think this movie and the changeover once they revealed that scene, even though it was early on, would have been a lot more shocking, and would have helped set up the last half of this movie
I was
a
gonna
lot
say,
better.
yeah, I agree with you because I didn't see the trailers, and I knew something was going to happen, but I was like, oh, okay, like I won't say that I was shocked, but I could appreciate like, all right, cool, so that's where this is going, and I think that the plot really works for me. Like, I can get behind this creepy old lady who's lonely, and you do weird shit when you're lonely and you're just trying to connect with someone. Like, when you boil that down, like any other situation would be really terrifying, but they try to, present it as, oh, well, she has this, daughter that she's kind of estranged from, and you don't really know why or where, what really happened. So I won't say that I was like enamored with it, but I thought that for the most part, it was
I wasn't
intriguing.
I wasn't particularly drawn in by the actress who played Greta. I don't really know her from anything, but I just found her a little bland. Like I would have liked to have seen that, because like John said, like there's borderline silly things in this movie, which is fine. Like mixing subtle humor into genre stuff obviously is fine, but I would have liked to see her maybe go a little more over the top or something. I think would have made this a little more interesting for me.
I can agree with that, because like when you try and make her like a unique, like, kind of quirky old lady, like it kind of, but I mean, I guess that also maybe mirrors like how mentally unstable she is, that like she's not like cute quirky, like there's some legit shit wrong with her.
Well, no, but I'm fine. Like,
And-
listen, she can go full Jack Nicholson, is what I'm saying. Like, I want her I want her in
yeah.
like Angelica Houston in Witches. Like, that's the level I want her. At.
I totally agree with you, because I mean, like the scenes where she's like dancing around without her shoes on after like something happens in the third act.
That was great.
Like that I was like, oh, okay, well that's where she was trying to get to, but I was like, there's several times, like you said, that the opportunity presented itself for that, and I would have liked flashes of that more so than
yeah. I'll be honest.
I like some of the more subtle text that they took with that stuff. To get into spoiler territory here, the key point for me, especially with Isabella Hupper, because we've got, and again, this is spoiler territory, we get a point where Chloe Grace Moretz tracks down her daughter that she's talking about, lives in Paris, and meets up with one of her daughter's friends, gets a kind of an info dump, which was kind of cheap and easy, but there's mention in there that Greta is not actually French, which she's been telling us all along, and speaking with her perfectly fine French accent and everything, and that she's actually Hungarian. And then a little bit later, as the crazy starts happening, there's a point where Greta completely dropped the French accent and went into the Hungarian accent. And for me, it kind of caught me off guard. I thought it kind of gave me chills.
I'm gonna be honest, I could not tell the difference between those two. I understood that the words she was saying were like a little more guttural, but it's like a little,
right.
It's like
a
little subtle.
Really, so I mean, Eric, like I actually would agree. I could have stood with more. Oh, like I could have done with her going even further over the top. The scene that Cece mentioned where she's dancing is like one of my favorite sequences.
Yeah, I agree.
The entire sequence with her and the detective, it's in some ways it's like not super critical.
It's weird.
But that, like, what I loved is how it kind of the drama ratchets up, right? So because you start with she's an old, as Cece mentioned, like she's just like a lonely old lady, and like maybe she's just acting crazy because like she's really kind of getting desperate, and then you're like, oh no, like she's faking an accent and her daughter's dead, like that's much worse. And then it's like, oh, you get this, there's like, it's a very small thing, I think it's the detective says like, yeah, we found someone by that name, but we thought she was deported and she used to be a nurse. And so then it like keeps getting worse and worse, and she goes and sees him, and that's the first time that you see her do anything like pretty extreme, and it's where that's where it really starts to kind of ratchet. That whole sequence, and that actor, he's in some ways he's the most understated actor in the whole film. His name is Stephen Ray. He's Irish, which is where Neil Jordan's from. I mean, so they've clearly like worked together in the past and stuff, but he was great, like that, and everything in that scene was I thought really well done.
I will say, like, probably my favorite aspect, and the thing that honestly looking back kept me from like fully Eric turning on this, was Chloe Grace Moretz. Like I'm a fan of hers, and I think like the last thing we saw her in is Suspiria, where she's actually like kind of underused. She disappears for like large chunks of that movie, but I really like her, and I think that she's really good at conveying like subtle emotional shifts just through facial expressions, which this movie actually kind of asks her to do a lot. Like there's kind of some specific conversations with Greta where she's trying to like hide being horrified, and there's just these little like subtle facial things going on that I was like, wow, this is actually like really interesting to watch, kind of her acting. I do think like she's got pretty distinct like affectations that you either are probably going to like or not, like I know I think Joe's turned on her over the course of watching this movie. I don't even know why Joe watched this movie, to be honest with you, because he's not here, but
I really enjoy her work in Neighbors. Did you see Neighbors too?
No.
I don't think she's not in the first one, she's only in the second one. It's pretty great. I agree, like I think, film to film, I like her in some things better than others, but she's definitely putting together a nice, nice little career here. And she got started so young. You think about
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
long it was, how long ago it was. 9 years she was in Let Me In.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's right. I forgot she was in that. She
I
played.
thought she was great in that, and she was good in like the Kick-Ass flicks too. So
Did she play
yeah.
the vampire in that movie?
yeah,
Dude, it was like
yes, Eric.
John. It was like a literal decade ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, but there's the girl vampire. I mean, there's a girl vampire and then the little boy, but
Crazy.
that and we
Yeah.
essentially watched that movie twice for the show because
yeah.
we watched the original too.
yeah.
Dude, there's so much I don't remember. And I mean, like, we do this every week. We talk about a lot of movies, like, right, over 500. And I just don't think I'm going to remember anything from this. You know what I mean? Like, there's so, especially now, we talk about this a lot, but kind of there's more genre material out there than literally
Yeah.
ever. And, like, a lot of, even if it's not always the best, like, people are doing weird shit out there, and it's like really fun to watch. And I guess that's part of why this movie's existence kind of baffles me in 2019, because it's very like mid-aughts studio
Yeah.
horror in a lot of
Well,
ways.
sure, but I would rather watch this than fucking Annabelle again. So
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
well,
all for you like trying new shit,
Well, no,
or,
but
or
it-
maybe revisiting.
but like
Yeah.
to my earlier point, like even if it's a train wreck, I'd rather watch Ma than this, because I can confidently say I've never seen a movie where a middle-aged woman opens a bar in her basement. You know what I mean? Like, ostensibly, it's kind of working from the same template, like this, like older woman sort of befriending teenagers and then turning on them. But like, that's the movie I want to see. Like, I've seen this movie before. You know what I mean?
You
Like,
haven't seen
Yeah.
it. I mean, let's wait and judge when we get there.
but even if it's bad, I'd rather, again, like we talked about, there's like, in a weird way, I'd rather see the perfection than this, because I'd rather watch something.
Oh no.
I'd rather watch something do something, try something ambitious and spectacularly fail than watch a really competently made mediocre movie.
Listen, I actually do not disagree with you on that point
It's
at all.
Listen, that's a personal preference, admittedly.
No, but the thing that you said earlier that I've been thinking about since you said it, because every once in a while you say something that makes me think,
You're welcome.
is that like how something like this got a pretty big theatrical push versus take your pick, Netflix, straight to Amazon, or even something like Suspiria, which got a theatrical release, but definitely did not get the same sort of push that this got, at least based on the marketing that I was exposed to. Maybe like that I'm not a perfect judge of that, but like those decisions, we're in this period right now where those decisions are becoming like increasingly like harder to suss out. And it might just be that like Neil Jordan has like a production deal with some distributor and this got out, and like maybe this was originally, he's from the UK. Maybe this is like originally meant to mainly be a UK film, but then it was good enough to, like who the fuck knows? But that decision is something that is like really, I am increasingly like unable to explain why one thing goes one place and not another,
Sure.
And
I mean,
it used to be like you used to be able to like tell those stories or
I mean,
unpack that
I'm
stuff.
curious how it did.
Yeah.
I'm curious how it did at the theater. I'm also curious like who put it out, because a lot of times that'll give you your answer.
But
But-
while John's looking that up though too, I would say for me, it's definitely a mental space, and I'm not disagreeing. This movie as a thriller does not do anything new and groundbreaking or anything like that. For me, it was just a really good story that was well made, and I got sucked into it. And for me, more in like in aspects to the crazy stuff and the new and innovative stuff, while I do enjoy that, I mean, this is practically the Blumhouse podcast these days, just because of how much shit they put out. It was kind of nice to have a break from all that crazy stuff
Well,
when you know there's going to be more of it.
I should say too, like when I say Blumhouse, like I'm not talking about Annabelle. I'm not talking about Insidious. I'm like, because those are the movies they make to fund stuff like Happy Death Day. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, totally.
Mhm.
They're just the ones that are putting it all out right now, and
I
they're
just,
the
like-
ones taking the chances.
and I think maybe this is just a general change in me as I get older and we talked about this a lot, but like just have way less free time. Like I don't have time for like just kind of okay movies. Like you gotta blow me away
Yeah.
or just get the hell out. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I do agree with you there.
Ain't nobody got time for that. Is what I'm trying to say, Cece.
So
I feel you.
quickly, this is actually a Focus Features joint, which does explain. I mean, they're that's sort of a more art housey imprint.
Yeah, that's
although
interesting,
they've
actually.
expanded a lot. They did Insidious Chapter 3, apparently.
I would love, this is the kind of movie too where I'd love to see like the first script versus the last script. Like you could almost picture the first script having all this really interesting stuff that just got like, you know, too many cooks in the room and just all the stuff got shaved out of it. Because
Yeah, I don't. I mean, look, Neil Jordan, again, based on sort of what we know about him, which is not a ton, but he is definitely an experienced filmmaker. Like, I can't imagine anyone's like really fucking with his script. Now, what might have gotten cut after they shot, who the hell knows? To your point, if there's a different cut of this where it gets a little crazier, who knows? But yeah, it did, and it did not do well. I mean, like as you might have suspected, it's
Dude,
not like a huge hit.
do you know who Micah Monroe is dating, John?
Oh, is it my boy?
Your twin.
Sebastian?
Your twin. No, even better. Your twin from Stranger Things. The other twin.
Oh, Steve.
Steve, yeah.
What?
I didn't know he was one of my twins.
Oh, John, look at this picture. If you had long hair, which you should, by the way.
Steve's the man. I love Steve.
That's literally you standing next to her with weird hair.
I can't wait to see this
Can so-
picture.
Oh my gosh.
Can somebody get a
Get
Steve?
out.
Can somebody get a Steve wig for the meetup, please, so we can make this happen?
Oh man, Steve.
We just
Yeah.
need to get Schnars a blowout.
I don't know if my hair's ever been quite that long.
His
Yeah,
hair is pretty intense, but yeah, that's you.
it's strong. He's going.
It's great. You like to see
So
it.
you did bring up Steve and Stranger Things. Does anybody else been getting the little promos for Coke or whatever before then? It's the spin on Stranger Things, and it's Steve going to the old Cinemark movie from like the '80s. And
No.
it's pretty great for retro feel.
When you say getting ads, where are you seeing them?
At the theater, like I saw it before this one, and I saw it before the last one we saw in the theater too.
Yeah.
And I think I saw it before Ma.
It's so
Maybe it's a Regal Cinemas thing.
It's so funny how, like, in the begin, I was thinking about this recently. Like, in the beginning of this podcast, like 2007, we were all largely still watching mostly just television, and so the experience of like, oh, what ads are you seeing? Like, we were all pretty similar. Like, the only real difference was like, what channel do you watch a lot? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
seeing a lot of trailers for this, and then I was thinking today, like, probably 90% of the video ads that I see are on Twitch because that's like most of what I watch. But like, I don't watch almost any television live. So like, I could
Oh
not.
yeah, I don't even have cable.
But like, I'm not even really. I don't watch Hulu, so I'm not getting those ads. Like, I don't. I watch a lot of YouTube, but I don't get a lot of ads there either. I feel like. But it's just really interesting, like how much our experiences have all skewed now. Like, I bet if you surveyed each one of us, like, what are you seeing ads for? And everything's targeted now too. So like, it's probably completely different.
My biggest place of ad consumption is the side of buses. So
That's funny.
yeah.
Side
You know.
of buses.
They can't target.
Yes.
They can't target that to you yet.
Well, yeah, they're like targeted to New York City.
Just
you know.
wait until we're all walking around with like augmented reality lenses on, and then when you can look at things and it'll just serve you a relevant ad to yourself. That's going to happen.
Can't wait.
It's like Blade Runner future.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Ma, it's fine.
Not Greta.
Ma,
Greta.
What
Oh,
is
yeah.
happening?
Yeah,
Greta.
Eric is very excited for Ma. I'm worried about how excited you are.
Yeah.
now.
Greta, it's fine. Would you recommend this movie, Cece?
If you don't have to pay for it and it's on Hulu or Netflix, sure.
Casey,
I'd recommend it.
John.
I'll say yes.
All right, I'm gonna say no. Unless you just have listen. If you have a lot of time to burn, it's a fine way to burn time. But if you have standards like I do these days, guys, then maybe not. That's all I'm saying. All right, guys.
There you go.
It's gonna do it for Greta. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Every New Year's Eve, the caller came out. One terrifying night of unspeakable evil. New Year's Evil. Rated R.
Now playing at a theater or drive-in near you.
Hey, this is Ken Foray. Make sure that you tune in to Bloody Good Horror, the best horror you'll ever find. in the United States, and internationally, Germany, England, Italy. It's all happening right here in the United States. Bloody good horror. Ken Forey and out, baby.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. John, don't forget. What I was sorry. What I was going to say was that I forgot to cut all your mics off so I could hear you all giggling to Ken Furry.
Is that who? I couldn't even understand what he was saying when he said his name, and then he was high, wasn't he, when he did that bumper part?
cannot say for sure. That is
Ken, it was great.
That is Ken Furry, John, star of both Dawn of the Dead and this Nickelodeon show whose name escapes me right now.
He'll always be that guy. He's in God damn it. The thing in New Orleans.
Well, he's in
Isn't that Ken Furry who plays the witch doctor? Or am I getting him confused?
I think he's in
No, that's Todd. That's Candyman.
Yeah, he's in the Devil's.
Tony Todd.
He's in the Devil's Rejects. He also plays Big Grizzly Joe in Halloween remake.
Yeah, it's like I think I can imagine what he looks like, but I think I'm just imagining Tony Todd now.
What is
no, yeah, he is in House. No, he's not. He's in Devil's Rejects.
Yeah, he's not in the first one. He also played. This is what I was thinking of. He played the dad in Kenan and Kel, John.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Amazing.
Little known fact: he's from Indianapolis.
Oh, he was on an episode of The X-Files in 1995. So there you go. Anyway, John, Twitter. There's no email tonight. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. What is on Twitter?
Oh shit! Were you expecting me to have the tweets pulled up?
Who else would do that, John?
I'll get them. I'm getting them. They're coming. Stand by. Talk amongst yourselves while I pull up Twitter here because I have to look at my password now.
So.
So guess what? I have survived my almost second week of school.
Whoa.
Hey, I saw a thing on Twitter, CC, that you've got a painting in an upcoming network television show that's going to be featured.
Yeah, it's already out. So it's the first episode of The Grand Hotel, which is on ABC. But yeah, it's in the pilot episode. Right before a hookup scene, you see it behind the character.
For people who don't know, you are an artist, and is it your day job, right? You make art and install art in hotels around the country.
Yes.
So were they just shooting in a hotel that you had done work in, or did they actively work with your company to get this situation set up?
So we 4 years ago, my company that I work for was hired to pick out artwork for this hotel during its renovation. And then basically a year and a half ago, they came back to us and were like, okay, well, we like these paintings. Can you find these artists? Because we need releases to use their artwork in television. And one of the pieces they really liked was one of the pieces that I painted for the property.
And
awesome.
You were like, yeah, I'll get you that release.
Yeah,
Show me
I was like, oh, yeah, I'll
cash.
reach out to them.
So if you just
the way she presented that, it's like her company's picking out the artwork, and Cece's like, look at this one, it's great.
Oh no, it does. Most of my personal work does not get purchased at my day job. Most of the artwork that I do for my day job is commissions based on stuff that the client specifically wants.
So if you want to, you can check out Cece's Twitter. She posted it there. And then also the show is on ABC, I believe.
Yes. I mean, it's a melodrama. It's like a whodunit, but hey.
But you can see people banging in front of Cece's painting, and that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that is I mean, how does that feel to know how many people are making love right now in front of the artwork?
I mean,
as we speak.
That it's really weird to think about it in that aspect because I have artwork that's in guest rooms of hotels. So thinking about that in the grand scheme of things is really bizarre. But
whenever I think of hotel artwork, all I can think about is the painting in The Shining in Scatman Carruthers' room with like the two ladies, like nude ladies with afros, like caressing each other.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
haven't done very many of those, but
no,
that
you
doesn't mean
should.
it hasn't happened.
It's cool. I'm into it.
Yeah.
All right.
John, what's on Twitter?
Twitter. We have two hashtags. The first, BGH Classics, for people exploring the back catalog, all the delights of 500 plus episodes of Bloody Good Horror. The first one comes to us from Flora Duhan, at Flora Duhan. Duhan. Sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly. This one is it's an Eric. Not to minimize it, but I don't fucking care anymore. And that was Eric shortly after saying he was going to cut down on swearing. Episode
mean-
15, The Eye.
Talking about how he didn't care about Greta.
I do actually swear much less now. It's not zero, but it's much like those early days. Like I was cussing like a sailor.
Kids do that to you.
I think in the
I
beginning,
was-
I mean, in the beginning of podcasts too, like there was a very clear delineation between podcasts done by like professional companies where they never swore, or would go so far as to like bleep things, which is so corny. And I think when you had shows like ours, where it's just a real like rinky-dink like indie fly-by-night operation, like we really would lean into that. It felt, I mean, revolutionary is a silly word, but it felt a little like transgressive in a fun way. You know what I mean? To just be like, we were putting this thing out of the airwave and could just say like whatever we wanted. So there's an aspect to that, I think.
Yeah, we were just kind of rolling around in it there at the beginning, especially. So, two more here, both from Monica, checking in with some choice cuts. See if you can spot the connection. The first one, can we have a pants off? That's Andy to Mark, and Mark responds, "We certainly can have a pants off, sir. That sounds filthy." That's episode 199. Take shelter.
That
the
movie
second one.
is fantastic.
Yeah, great movie. Michael Shannon. Second one. If your pants get tight when I talk about beer, well, I appreciate that.
Mm.
And that's our own Joe. A little tribute to Joe in his absence. Episode 186, Melancholia.
Oh, another banger.
Yeah, good movie. All right. Ask BGH. 1 second. I have to rerun my search. And here we are. Let me just make sure I'm not doing one that we've done before. All right, we're gonna start here. So, all right, there's a nested element here. So Thor's Hour of Thunder podcast at Library of Congress. He says, so I tweeted this nonsense out, and it got me thinking. What would each of you pick to be the first song made by humans to be heard by an alien race?
Oh, I answer this. It's easy. The answer is "Party in the USA" by Miley Cyrus.
What?
That's
No.
it.
Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, so he's actually talking about the Voyager probe, and that had the gold record on it, and it has some classical music. Like, to me, classical music is like the very obvious answer because it's non-lyric. Like, there's no words.
It's
which-
very like mathematical in nature, and like yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I actually would go with like, I don't know, a Beethoven.
But if we're, I mean,
concerto
but
or
I think
something.
that's kind of cheating because I think he's wants like what's the pop answer or like the modern answer. I mean, this isn't modern, but I feel like John Lennon or like the Beatles or something.
Well,
you
yeah,
know
the
what I mean?
Beatles is
Yeah.
like another. You can't really go wrong
Barf.
here. All right,
Jeez,
Cece,
Cece.
what's your answer?
I don't have a good one, but it would not be the Beatles. I'm sorry.
Jeez.
Not a Beatles
Oh.
fan.
Well, in any event,
I'm just talking. I'm just thinking.
your non-answer.
I'm just thinking of things with like
why wouldn't it be,
cultural
like
relevance.
Led Zeppelin or something. Like why the Beatles?
Are you trying to get our fucking planet nuked by some aliens? I mean, I love Led Zeppelin, but they might take it as like a threat or something, depending on
Like
which
I'm
song you
literally
pick.
thinking of sending like Give Peace a Chance or something. You know what I mean? Like something that's like culturally relevant and sends a message of like
Yeah.
if they actually could understand it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
I appreciate this like
What's your answer,
imaginative
Cece?
question, but no.
Cece's not participating in this question.
No, I want
Very
an answer from
quickly.
Cece so we can make fun of
Listen,
her.
I just had to have a debate about the 5th century heresies. So yeah, like I don't have any like there's no pop culture references around right now.
Fine. Then our final answer is "Who Let the Dogs Out." Let's move on.
Yeah. All right, so I'm jumping back because I don't think we did these last week. So our friend Bill O'Brien, friendly Gayborhood Daddy Man, he says it's Pride Month. What's y'all's favorite queer horror film? Did we? I don't think we got. Did we do? We didn't do this, right?
I feel like I need time to think about it. I don't know, man.
I know. That's what I'm thinking as well.
Because the only examples I can immediately think of are bad ones like Father's Day. Like,
Jesus
it's just like
Christ.
what pops into my head.
I'm trying to think. Was that movie? Did that movie Raw have like some queer elements? There was a lot of like
Maybe.
sexual.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There was definitely like some like gay love sequence or relationships.
I
In that
mean,
film.
she ate her sister's fingers. That was weird.
That was a sweet movie though. I didn't get to be on that show, but I went back and
Oh,
watched.
man.
The movie.
It's pretty
I
wacky,
really liked
yeah. I don't know, man. I'd have to like see some examples to see if there's things I've seen.
I'm pulling it up. Just give me like 2 seconds.
You want like a list that you can pick from?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, nope. This is like a whole timeline. I'm sorry. There's some.
How about Climax? That movie we just watched. That movie was.
Yeah, that was intense.
I mean,
Good
there's
God.
no. I mean, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
All right, listen, I'm trying.
Yeah. I mean, yes. There's gay people in that movie. I'm not sure that I would call it like queer horror.
Well, look, that would be like. But I'm also curious, like, what's the definite like?
I think he should write us back and give us his top 5 examples so that I can.
Well,
Because there
okay, so
is a-
like Neon Demon, John said Raw, What Keeps You Alive? I don't know what that one is. And then Stranger by the Lake.
Yeah, I don't know.
Never seen
Yeah, these are a lot I haven't seen, which I'm like, I need to. They say High Tension.
Hmm.
Okay.
But isn't there
yeah.
like a genre that is specifically
Yeah, that's specific.
low budget? That's that the queerness is a key element of it.
Isn't that the thing in High Tension that I can't remember if the girls were dating or if like the one girl like had a crush on the other one whose house they were at? Wasn't that a big part of that?
I think so. It's
Now
been
that
so
I-
long since I've seen that too.
I just saw that not too long ago. I think that's what the deal was. Anyway, it's
All
an
right,
interesting
well,
question.
We did,
It's an
very little
interesting
justice to that
question.
question.
As someone
Yeah.
like, I'd like to hear his suggestions for people if he could write back.
Adam
Yeah, definitely.
Adam Steinbacher at Mean Shadows. Speaking of Steven Weber's work, have any of you listened to Stephen King's It audiobook? It's 45 hours long, so maybe an impossible task for some,
Holy
but
crap.
Weber's performance is the best and so worth it. Also, Dr. Sleep trailer, holy shit, thoughts.
I have listened to the audiobook of it, and I agree. It's really good. I listen to it on the plane a lot. And I'll go back and like re-listen to portions of it just because it's that good. Also, I'm super excited for Dr. Sleep. I am trying not to like really watch the trailers or anything, but I was so pleasantly surprised when I read Dr. Sleep a couple of years ago. And if you haven't read it but you enjoyed The Shining, it's definitely it's definitely obviously contemporary, and it doesn't.
It sounds very different.
It does. It is. It's super different, but it's a great homage to The Shining. Like there's just enough that you're like, okay, he took the source material, like, he's not trying to, make money off of The Shining again.
I've never read it, but when the trailer came out, my coworker like briefly gave me an overview of the plot, and I was like, wow, that sounds pretty wild.
Yeah, it's super cool because, I mean, not to like give too much away, but in case anyone's curious about checking it out. So it's Danny grown up, and he grows up knowing that he has this shining, and he starts working in a like a hospice basically. So he's kind of like this angel of death. Like he helps people pass over, and he starts getting messages in his apartment from somebody, and come to find out like there's this other person or this like younger girl who has the shining. And the way that they get back to the Overlook Hotel, because it burned down, and they talk about that, but there are these psychic vampires that feed off of people with the shining, and it's really cool how that's like described and how it's kind of like a very tangible explanation.
And isn't the director someone big on the movie?
I don't know.
I thought it was someone, like it was like a person, like an actual human as opposed to a robot director, I guess. Yeah, I'm pulling it up. But in any event, I'm actually going to. I'm not going to read the book, and I'm not going to watch the trailer. That's my plan.
If I
I
like
like-
it, I'll read the book after. How's that?
Oh yeah, it's Mike Flanagan who did.
Oh yeah. Because people were
Oh,
like
yeah.
talking about it, and now you say that. Yeah, that totally came.
Yeah.
Okay. Casey's yelling at his dog. We so we actually have a bunch. We're gonna try and rip through these. Diana at Diana NK says Micah Monroe is great at the whole being chased by something sinister thing. Name your favorite scream queen. Go.
I mean, is Jennifer Tilly a scream queen?
I would say no,
Yeah,
but
no, I would
if
say
you want-
yes. Yes. Come on.
Okay,
Come on.
all right. You know what? Whoever you want to be a scream queen.
It's 2019.
Jesus. I don't know if I have a favorite.
I don't know either if I have a favorite. Yeah.
I was a pretty big fan of Linnea Quigley for a long time, and there's
Yeah.
some good personal history there.
I mean, the thing with Linnea Quigley is like, she's just not a great actress per se. Like, she has a lot of personality that she brings to those roles, but like, and it's a lot of that '80s fun schlocky stuff. But like,
Yeah.
you know, you're not
Nothing
getting.
wrong with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer for this. I do like Heather Langenkamp a lot. I really like Heather Langenkamp in A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, when she comes back and is like an adult doctor who's like coming back to help Elm Street kids. Like, that's a movie that I really enjoy.
Hold on. Does Adrienne Barbeau count?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
that's 100% mine.
Bro,
then.
she was in The Fog and Swamp Thing.
Well, no, I mean I know, but because
no,
I didn't know if the Fog role was really scream queenish, but yeah, all right.
she screams. It's a horror.
She
movie.
does scream.
That's it.
She's
Cool.
got some others under her belt too.
If you've starred in 2 classic horror movies, maybe even one, it's just one. Yeah.
Have you ever screamed? You're good.
You're in the club.
Yeah. All right. So Cody, our buddy Cody Yolo, at Cody OLO, he sent us 4 questions. I am going to
One.
ask one person. No, I'm going to ask one person each of them, and we can go kind of like rapid fire style. So Eric, can you really jumpstart a car with a knife as seen in Friday the 13th Part 4?
Yes. You just
Okay.
stick the knife in anywhere and turn it until you see a spark, and it'll start.
So, like, what if I just shoved it into the dashboard?
No, it's got to be under the hood. You just poke it
Under the hood,
just-
not into like the actual
No, just
steering column.
stick it right into the battery. It'll start right up.
There
I
you
will
go.
throw in there that I've done similar with a flat-headed screwdriver before with a solenoid.
Oh, what?
Okay. This was supposed to be Eric's question and answer. Casey,
Sorry.
you have a question upcoming, but listen, thank you, everyone. All right, Cece, you're getting this one. If you had to pick an innocent children's book like Dr. Seuss to adapt into a horror movie, which one would you pick? I probably should have asked someone who's been reading a lot more children's books than you, but go ahead. See what do you got?
Man, I'm just trying to think of Dr. Seuss books. Although, I mean, look, somebody who like has some intense anxieties, like all the places you could go could turn out to be a really freaky book, or I mean, a really freaky movie if you were like,
They all could. There's all kinds of wacky shit going on in the Dr.
What about
Seuss
if
book.
somebody just showed up? What if you worked at a restaurant and someone just constantly showed up and ordered green eggs and ham? And like, even if you were constantly like, "I'm sorry, sir, like we don't serve that here,"
Sir,
and they
that's
just
not- it's
would not stop asking.
I told you yesterday, that's not a thing.
Eric, do you have any? Have you? I know you have well documented.
No, we've been
resisted
been
reading children's books. But...
My daughter's way into like Disney princess stuff, and if you read a lot of the older stories, like people are always dying or like getting attacked or like
all
nearly.
of Cinderella, like all of those fairy tales are super dark.
And it's really
They're
funny
very
to
dark.
see. It's really funny to see the way the golden books will, like
Oh, yeah.
address it, but kind of dance around saying what happened. Like, oh, he fell and was hurt, or like it's really because they're still trying to frame it for little kids, but without those plot points, the story doesn't make any sense. So I don't know,
Well,
but
like,
that's been
the
interesting.
the Cinderella sisters cut off their toes, and like the glass slipper filled with blood, and then they eventually got their eyes plucked out.
That's not in
and-
the movie. That's not in the original movie, though, right?
No, but it's in the story.
No, but
That's
what
the
I'm
original
saying,
story.
but what I'm saying is like I'm reading books based off of movie adaptations. So like even though
Oh,
what I'm
no.
finding is even those old Disney movies have a lot of
Yes.
plots that I feel like you wouldn't necessarily see in a kids movie these days, like Bambi
Yeah.
getting shot or whatever.
Like trying to kill Snow White with a poison apple.
Yeah, like just I don't know. It's interesting. Like it's a little more. There's a lot more direct threat of violence in those older ones. That's all.
There's a lot of violence in some of these other kids movies.
I wasn't gonna chime in, John. I'm trying to stick to the one.
No,
person
all right.
question rule.
So I'll answer the next one. Which BGH host would make it longest on Willy Wonka's tour as a kid? I assume this is only of the 5, and I think I'm gonna go with probably Cece.
Hmm.
I think Cece. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think we all have just low enough impulse control that we'd all be done in.
I mean, we
I
all
was gonna
know
say-
I'm not going to make it far.
Depending on what I mean, I'm not a huge candy person, but like, I mean, they had sweets, like just general sweets. So like,
Oh yeah.
I
I
ain't
actually,
bad.
I legit finished reading Willy Wonka like 3 days ago with my kids, and that movie gets or that story gets a little dark. Like those kids all got pretty hard. So
have I told y'all what a sugar tit is?
I'm sure.
No, go
I'm
ahead.
sure-
We'll
yeah,
allow it.
sorry.
We'll allow
This
it.
is how country my family is. So my uncle and my aunt that live in Tennessee. So like when we would be in Tennessee, we would go over to their house, and they live up in like they live in the foothills, so like up in the mountains. And we would always ask for candy or like something like kid food, like something sweet and fun. And my aunt like usually would not have anything because they were older. So she would cut a piece of cloth and fill it full of sugar and then tie it up and give me a glass of water, and she would tell me to dip it in there and suck on it, and that was called a sugar tit.
Wow.
I'm
That is
surprised my teeth did not fall out.
incredible. I mean, listen, I was like chugging Fun Dip. I don't know
Right.
if you all have had
I
Fun Dip. I
also-
mean, it's like the exact same damn thing.
I also like the idea that we need more evidence of how country your family.
Sugar Tit that is amazing.
Amazing, right?
So I'm gonna, that's what I'm gonna start calling Joe when he comes back.
I mean, my God. All right, one more. This one is for Casey. For you, as you'll understand. Ever been to Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana?
I have. It's
He
awesome.
says- He says, if so, give review, ride stories of note, etc. Maybe just your brief review.
It's a great little. It's for being out in the middle of BFE, Indiana. And I mean, it's way out there, and there's not a whole lot else around it. It's a great little amusement park. They've got some world class wooden coasters. The old lady who owns it, stands outside the front gate and welcomes everybody as you walk in when the park opens. She walks, she stands out there, waves, and says hi to everybody and wishes them good morning. And they give you free soft drinks and sunscreen throughout the park.
What? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty great. They've got some really good, solid coasters, so I highly recommend. But be prepared. I mean, don't go for like 2 days because there's nothing else around there than Holiday World.
So you like camp right outside and then you head in the morning kind of situation?
There's like you can camp there, and there's like a hotel in the town.
Nice. All right, there you go. I wasn't sure if that was a real question, but that is a real answer.
Yeah, it's a legit place.
Bo at bjangles23. Is Chloe Grace Moretz the new go-to horror casting, and do you support it? Let Me In, Carrie, Suspiria, Greta. I'm sure I'm missing some others. And the next Wednesday Addams.
I mean, it's interesting for her to be in something like this because I feel like she's done a lot of higher profile stuff. I feel like she's maybe I have a misperception, but I feel like she's beyond like middling horror thriller territory. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. 'Cause she definitely had a period where like she was in everything.
Well,
Yeah.
and she's not just in horror. Like she's just working a lot because she's whatever. I think she's like 23. Like you got to get that paper now. Like you don't want to be doing this many movies when you're in your 40s and 50s, I guess. Yeah, no, I'm fine with it. I mean, I think she's good. She even when she's not great, she's definitely solid. So, 2 more quickly. COW Flanagan at CO_W Flanagan. How did you all? You're gonna like this one. How did you all, especially Schnars, that's me, celebrate Juneteenth? That's today, Juneteenth.
I
Did you guys know that?
What is this
Yes,
again?
I did because I live in Atlanta.
I've heard this, but what is
Yeah.
this?
It's I mean, it's not a new holiday, but this was like the first year where I feel like there was a lot of awareness around it, and
Oh yeah.
But it's a holiday that's been part of the African American community for like decades and decades that
Mhm.
marks the end of slavery. So
Oh, interesting.
if I remember correctly,
I'm glad I held off on my smart ass jokes before
There you go.
until you finished that.
Same.
Yeah, because I've been reading this book about the American history, and I believe the date is when the Union soldiers basically, it was like the day they told like a group of enslaved folks in, I believe, Texas,
Yeah, it was
that the
Texas.
war was over. Essentially, it was
Mhm.
like June 19th,
Hmm,
and that they were
interesting.
free. So
We
that's why they picked this day.
we do celebrate Evacuation Day here, John. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's the day that British soldiers were finally driven out of
Hmm.
the states.
Yeah, nice.
It's also
No,
it's also controversial, but I don't know why. It's on tax day.
We celebrate the corn harvest.
there you go.
course.
The midsummer, as it were.
The filling of the
Uh,
silos.
Craig at Four Color Craig. Today marks the 20th anniversary of Stephen King getting hit by a van and nearly being taken from us. What do you think his best work has been since his recovery?
Joe Hill.
Oh boy.
I mean, listen. I appreciate both of them. His best work since, you know,
Didn't he write Misery after that?
No.
no,
I'm
I
pretty
think
sure
that
that
was
was
before.
I thought the whole point of Misery was he wrote it about the experience of being like stranded on the side of the road and how he thought he was going to die. I thought that was the whole inspiration for that.
Now
I
I'm gonna have
thought
to look.
I
but-
know. I thought it was after. I feel like Christine was written afterwards, and I love Christine.
I'm pretty sure Christine is like top. It's like in his first 5 novels.
I
Yeah,
thought
that's
people
pretty early
hated it
on.
because it was afterwards. I don't know.
You guys have some like very strange like associations with Stephen King and why he wrote different books, but no, the ones that came like immediately after were like Insomnia, and there was like a bunch. There was the ones, and it was right. There was like a period where he was
Oh.
people were essentially insinuating that his wife was writing the novels. I'm like getting to a list of his books
Interesting.
now.
So I mean, I guess I was totally wrong because the Misery was 87 and the Accident was 1999.
Yeah, so Bag of Bones. So he doesn't write anything after 87, which is it. And then you get Bag of Bones 99, Hearts in Atlantis, Green Mile, Black House.
I mean, Green Mile is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Green Mile was really good, actually. I read it in the original, like, did you guys read it when it was coming out? Because they put it
Yeah.
out in the, like, slim volumes.
I worked at the bookstore when that came out, and I was mystified on how it came out. And John Saul did the same thing right around the same time too.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought, I think I read that Black House book, and that was pretty good too, if I
Wasn't
remember.
that with somebody too?
It was him and Peter Straub, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't read that many of his like post 99 books actually.
Yeah, me either.
Oh, so sorry. Dreamcatcher. You get a couple of the later Dark Tower novels. Duma Key, Under the Dome, 11/22/63. I mean,
I think
I don't know.
my dad's
There's some good ones in
my
there.
dad's a huge Stephen King fan. I know he liked Doomickey.
I tried to read Under the Dome, and by God, that was too long.
I don't know that I've read any of these actually. A lot, yeah. In any event, so yeah, sorry, there, Craig, Four Color Craig. But that's all we got. That was our last question.
All right. Next week, John, Chucky's back. The good old Chuckster.
Is that what we call him?
I'm pretty sure that's said at some point. Probably that seems like a Bride of Chucky kind of thing.
Oh, somebody called him Chuckster for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like something Jennifer Tilly would say. So.
Oh, Chucky.
know.
There you
Yeah.
go.
See us then.
I do declare. So that's what we're doing next, and then there's the other theatrical thing on our radar coming up this summer would be Midsummer.
I thought you were about to say Crawl.
Now, CC,
Yeah, that is on my personal radar.
CC unintentionally made us excited about Crawl, which is a
I know.
killer crocodile movie or some shit.
Was not expecting that.
But yeah, that's what's going on, John. We're in the heat of the summer here. Finally,
It's heating up.
very exciting. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for our discussion on Greta. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.